Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. Today is Saturday, September 28th, and this is your weekly analysis video. Well, we're looking at where we left things off at last week's video, and we got a direct hit right in our green target box. So the target box was starting Wednesday and ending Tuesday next week. So this is an A-rated forecast, so that's great. The combination of Mars-Uranus moving 15 degrees from October 25th continues to deliver. So this is why it's still on our chart, and this is why it will continue to be on our chart until it ceases to deliver. So this ruler is proving to be incredibly effective. Now the question is, what's next? So let's just kind of go through what we're seeing here. I am noticing a ton of similarities between the July high and Thursday, Friday's price action. Both poked above this Venus Helio planetary line. So this is coming from the TTPL intercurrent script using mod 360 scaling, scaled to $1,800 per 360 degrees, and displaying Venus Helio and Mars Helio mirrored. All right, so that's the setup so you can follow along at home. And we've got a cross here, okay? And a cross on Thursday. So this is really the foundation of this week's forecast, is the similarities between what happened back here in July and what is happening here in September. And about a month ago, I think I talked in depth about the importance of this July high and why I think it is so critical, because it connects back to the December 2021 high and also the COVID low. The connection with the December 2021 high is through Saturn Helio. I think it's like 15 degrees of Saturn Helio. And the COVID low is connected with 7.5 degrees of Chiron Helio. So those are very important, very slow moving planets when they make direct hits like this on significant price action days. You need to pay attention to that because it can indicate intermediate to longer term price trend changes. So that's the premise for focusing in on this July high, and we're seeing some strong similarities with last week's high as well. Okay, so another thing that is really interesting right now is, of course, it is eclipse season. So we can see that with our time trade script. I'm going to turn off Venus intervals, and this draws a purple box for eclipse season. Now, eclipse season is not just the time between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse. Of course, we've got a solar eclipse hitting next week. It is the time when the nodes are moving really slowly. And we can use the PL outer current to visualize that. So I'm going to manage the lines here so you can see it a little easier. And I've got outer current showing, let's just show north node and north node only for now, because the point I want to make is look at where the gray north node line basically goes sideways. So it goes sideways throughout eclipse season because it's basically not moving anymore. And I talked about this last week, how the nodes get stuck around eclipse season because they're gravitationally locked to the sun and Earth. So what do we know about price action during slow node time? Well, we can go and take a look at recent price action here. Let's look at node speed during zero subdivisions. All this is a fib time zone that's anchored to where the nodes go flat. And we can see some interesting patterns. We've got a pattern here that starts during the last during the node flat time zone in September of 2023 through December of 2023. And we see a dump that starts right around the 382 time frame and ends at 618. Okay. Next example is we've got the nodes going flat between February of this year and then they start moving again in May of this year. And we have a dump that really kind of gets going at the 618 and ends at the 786. So the takeaway from those two examples, and yes, there's more examples if you look back further in time, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to focus on those two. And I want to look at the current time frame. We've got nodes going flat between August 19th and October 31st. And we just passed the halfway mark. Okay, so that's 50%. So I am looking for some sort of price correction here between basically now and mid-October. All right, so that is the takeaway from that bit of the analysis. Now, let's take a look at, we can take a look at the nodes as support resistance lines using the wheel of 24 here. So let me just hide this, okay? And one of the reasons why I love having the nodes on my chart is it seems like it doesn't matter whether I use the wheel of 24 or mod 360, the nodes will act as major pivot points. They almost always tend to be active at spots like this. And sure enough, the nodes were active again at spots like this in last week, okay? And you can see again down here at the early August low, the nodes were active. So that's one of the reasons why I'm looking at this, thinking that it has the potential to be a significant high. Now we want to see confirmation of that first, but things are definitely lining up. Now let's also take a look at Jupiter. We can add the south node. Actually, I'm not going to talk to that, but let's add Jupiter Saturn synodic, which is an important synodic pair when it comes to the NASDAQ index. And we can see that it is halfway through its 24-degree cycle here. So Jupiter Saturn synodic is crossing, those lines are crossing. And when they cross, that means it's about 12 degrees through its current 24-degree cycle on the wheel of 24. And one of the things that we see repeatedly with these wheel of 24 lines is pivots tend to occur, not always, but usually they tend to occur at crossovers of starting a new wheel of 24 segment like here, or halfway through like here, right? And you can see here's an example of halfway through the node. So the node is halfway through a segment. We got a pivot low here, and then once the crossover is done, it moved up to the next segment there. Okay, so this is another argument in favor of a pivot high being drawn, in addition to the price action, in addition to Mars Uranus moving another 15 degrees. Okay, so let's take a look at the new forecast here. I think we've gone over some of the major elements that are going to be incorporated in the new forecast, so we can bring that up. All right, so the new forecast, like I said, is really based on looking at this first phase down of the July flush. The July through August flush was about a month long. The first leg occurred at a very similar spot in the lunar sign cycle. So if we turn on lunar signs, we can go and look at this. And what we see here, actually, let me reduce the amount of visual noise because there's a lot. All right, so when it comes to lunar signs, the top over here was made in Virgo. When the moon was in Virgo, we've got the moon entering Virgo tomorrow, basically tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, 9:29. Okay, so the moon is going to be in Virgo with Monday's trading and Sunday night's opening of futures. Okay, so if we basically draw this box and replicate it over here, and we end up with a point down here on Friday, October 11th. So why is that interesting? And this is where the machine learning comes in, is that we can kind of get an unbiased confirmation of some of our analysis just by looking at some of the machine learning pivots here. And we're looking at SPX. And we see a spike in pivots over here, October 11th, right? So that is an interesting date and a good bit of confirmation here. Let's see what's happening on NDX at the same time. NDX has a spike in pivots, 58% probability. Oh, and look at all of these moves. So it looks like there's potential for a big move heading down into this pivot, and then the move probabilities back off. I'm also looking ahead to December. Early and late December look like there's some interesting time periods here as well. So NDX and SPX machine learning forecasts also line up with October 11th. So this is why I've got my new target box centered on October 11th. Also, because the lunar signs switch into these typically the more positive half of the cycle, starting at Aquarius. So we're starting the negative half of the lunar cycle, starting at Leo, or slightly more negative. And then that will last for about 2 weeks. It also lines up with that Mars-Uranus 15. It lines up with that Venus-Helio price action crossing it. It looks like a fake throwover and then a rejection back down underneath it. So what I've done here is I've centered our target box around Friday, October 11th, plus or minus 2 days on either side. I think if anything, I do like this target box area. Now, why did I choose this price? Well, firstly, it lines up with the amount of price change from the July high. Okay, so that matches. And also, if we turn on some of our planetary lines again, you can see how we have basically a Jupiter-Saturn line up here. And when price gets moving, often it'll make these round trips. It'll go Jupiter-Saturn to Jupiter-Saturn, or it'll go node to node, right? So I wanted to incorporate those levels in here as well. All right. So let's see if we have any magic levels or anything around here. We can turn off this. We can turn off this. We've got magic levels on. Looking at the 12th harmonic. Yeah, and this is where I started up here at the 12th harmonic, subdividing a white magic level. So that's also a good level. So here's our target box. We will reassess after, mid-October. But I'm not sure, it's not clear to me that we are going to continue down after this simply because of how the nodes are still flat, right? And it's very unusual to get kind of like trending markets when the nodes are flat. And yes, I know we're in Venus interval 5, and the rule of thumb is Venus interval 5s tend to give us trending markets. This may be an exception, or at least in this part of Venus interval 5, because of the big eclipse season that we're in right now. So the outlook I've got for the next couple of weeks is kind of like fairly significant move down, but not necessarily the start of a new downtrend. I think that's going to come later in interval 5 once the nodes start moving again. Okay, so that's the forecast here for NQ. I'll be back shortly with a view on Bitcoin and gold. Thank you. Back and looking at Bitcoin here, and we've got on the chart, we've got Mercury Helio, and Mercury Helio is being displayed two different ways. We've got Mercury Helio being displayed using mod 360 on the PL intercurrent script, scaled at $4,500 per 360 degrees. And the larger one is scaled at $18,000 at 360 degrees. So that is drawing all of the orange lines here that you see. And this big sweeping line coming down is coming from the $18,000 scaling. And crossing this is a very bullish sign. Okay, so that is positive for Bitcoin. However, we're right at 50% of the Venus Helio orbit, and you can see just how elliptical Mercury Helio is. I keep calling it Venus for some reason. The Mercury Helio orbit stretches from here, starting at 0 degrees at August 27th, all the way to here at 360 degrees on November 22nd. But it reaches halfway through its orbit over here. So clearly very elliptical. And this is why I love dealing with actual planetary movements instead of straight line estimates, because the straight line estimates don't work on planets like Mercury or Mars or Pluto with very elliptic orbits. Okay, so we're at the halfway mark. And what tends to happen there? Oh, well, if we go back in time, we can see a pattern of reversals, right? We got a reversal here in July. If we go back in time, we got a reversal 3 days after the crossover. If we go back here, we got a reversal pretty much on the day. Took about 3 days to actually resolve. And if we go back even further, we're going to see actually not much of a revert. Well, actually, this is a great reversal here in October 2023. It's this one that was kind of flat in July of 23. With that being said, we need to be on watch for a bit of a correction here, a natural correction in what looks like a bull market for Bitcoin based on where Mercury Helio is in its orbit. So that correction could take us down to this area here, 63K level, or it could even take us down to this area over here, right around 61. So let's go and take a look at the machine learning and see what that's telling us for Bitcoin. We've got a pivot late last week, September 27th. So that was yesterday, Friday. And we've got another pivot coming up Monday, the 30th. But we do have a noticeable lack of pivots after September 30th, other than, maybe October 4th. So I think whatever the way you can use this information is whatever trend is in force after, say, October 4th, that's the trend you should trade, especially with this cluster of moves. So these moves will more than likely kick off or happen in the direction of the trend. So pay close attention to the trend that's in force after, say, the September 30th to October 4th area, and just trade the trend there, because it looks like we've got a nice burst of movement energy coming in Bitcoin, peaking on October 16th. So the way this is measured is it's counted from 5 days before. So 5 trading days before is right around here, the 10th and 11th. Okay, so pay attention to those dates coming up on Bitcoin. So in short, bullish chart, bullish price movement, correction expected. And we've got a nice edge here from some of the pivot probabilities that we see on the Bitcoin chart coming up September 30th and October 4th. All right, I'll be back with gold shortly. All right, we're going to wrap up this week's video with a quick look at gold here. And what we're looking at is my favorite setup for gold using intercurrent with sun and earth, mod 360 scaling, scaled at $180 per degree of longitude. And what we see here is a potentially significant reversal right on this Earth line. And it's also happening right at Venus Earth 30 degrees. So Venus Earth 30 degrees has been doing a pretty good job. It's not quite as good as Mars Uranus on NQ, but I do like Venus Earth 30 here as a ruler on gold. And it occurs on Monday. And we've got some pretty significant price action right at a major planetary level. Let's take a quick look at the time trades machine learning here, and we see a pivot forecast for Tuesday, October 1st, and a big cluster of moves. So this cluster of moves is forecast to continue through October 11th, and then we have an even bigger cluster of pivots at the end of the month. So how I'm interpreting all this between the price action right at the planetary level combined with the proximity to this pivot, this is a 51% pivot, combined with the probabilities of a 5-day move here, I think that we might end up seeing a bit of a correction here on gold. It could last for the month of October. It could continue down until we get to this next cluster of pivots over here, starting on October 24th. And then, of course, we see some massive probabilities of moves after that. So be on alert for correction in gold. And so tighten stops, take profits if you're long, and we can always get back in on confirmation or separation up above this earth line. But I'm treating this kind of price action here fairly seriously. You can see how previous examples of this kind of price action right on those earth lines have led to some good corrections, some of them multi-day corrections. This may even stretch into like a multi-week correction, given where it is relative to the Venus Earth ruler. Okay, so that's it for me this week. Remember, this is educational information only. This is not financial advice. So please manage your risk and own your trades, and we will talk to you again next week. Thank you. Bye now.